My junk removal story began in 2013 on my last deployment to Afghanistan. I spent 16 years in the infantry, proudly spent 16 years in the infantry, with a few years mixed in as a military recruiter, best time of my life. But I was medevaced out of Afghanistan on my 11th month, and I was sent to the Warrior Transition Battalion at Fort Bliss, Texas, commonly referred to as the Wounded Warrior Barracks, where all soldiers who are wounded are sent to recuperate while the Army takes care of you and makes you better. Once released from the Wounded Warrior Barracks 12 months later, I returned home, and less than a week later, my wife received notice that she was selected as the number 3 pick out of 7,000 applicants to take part in a prestigious fellowship with the federal government. And that's what she does now. So we uprooted our family and left everything and everyone we knew in California, and we relocated to Virginia. And during the relocation process, my wife is experiencing pregnancy pains, and she gave birth immediately upon landing in Virginia. She stayed home for 3 months on maternity leave, but the government wouldn't give her any more time to report, so she had to go. And there I was, still not whole myself, still dealing with issues from Afghanistan and previous deployments, but now I'm forced to get up every morning to ensure that my 3-month-old, my little boy, my blessing, that all of his needs are being taken care of. I wasn't getting much sleep at night, as most new parents can attest to. But for the following 2 years of raising my little boy, I was in a funk. I had planned to spend 20 plus years in the military. And then one day, just like nothing, everything was pulled out from underneath my feet, and I was forced to be a daddy. I wasn't forced to be a daddy. I was made to be a daddy and give 120% throughout the day and night to the raising of my boy. My wife would get home at about 5:30 p.m., and then I would just go into a funk, guys. I smoked a lot of marijuana during that time, just trying to relieve the pain. I drank a little bit, though I'm not much of a drinker. And I didn't know which way was up. I didn't have any friends. I didn't have a support system. And by nature, I'm kind of a loner. So I chose to deal with all of my issues on my own. I was having nightmares. I was arguing with my wife. Typical PTSD type issues, and I wasn't getting any relief from anywhere, and I didn't want to have that stigma attached to me of the shell shock veteran, so I kept it all inside. I couldn't find my place in society. And then one day, my neighbor, who is currently a Marine, she's PCSing. For those of you who have never spent any time in the military, PCSing means permanent change of station. Just basically, she was being reassigned. So I had a trailer at that time, and she had gotten a quote from 1-800-GOT-JUNK, and I can recall her saying how ridiculous it was. The rate was astronomical, and she needed her whole house junked, moved, trash, whatever. So she approached me one day and asked if we could work out a deal, and we did. And then she told a few of her friends, her fellow Marines, that were also PCSing, and they had junk. And eventually, guys, I realized that there could be something here. Perhaps this could be a business. And I did a few more jobs for her friends. And then I was encouraged to put an ad on Craigslist. And I did. And I got more work. Being a veteran in a military town, I branded my business as a veteran-owned junk removal company. And I realized that every time I completed a junk removal job, started to feel better. Every time I drove away with that check or that cash or that payment in my pocket, I felt really good. And I started to realize something. The more I started to work, I started to feel more whole. Being in the infantry, a typical day was carrying, a rucksack on my back, God knows how many miles on a ruck march, or getting dirty in the woods, getting banged up, cut, bruised, and so forth. And I realized that junk removal was very similar. In the infantry, we worked in the rain, in the snow, in the heat, and I did the same thing in junk removal. And little by little, I coined a term of how I was feeling and the process that I was going through. And I coined it junk removal therapy. And I knew that if I was feeling better, that there was a possibility that were other individuals out there just like me who could possibly experience relief owning their own business. So I toyed with the idea. I started creating videos, documenting my daily junk removal journey, starting to feel better all the while, starting to develop my brand. And eventually, out of the blue, guys that I didn't know from around the country started reaching out to me, started asking me how they could be part of the Vets Hall junk removal brand. And I brought on Jonathan Schaefer, wonderful man, really intelligent guy, Navy veteran. He was my very first, I coined the term local owner. He was my very first individual that bought into my vision and decided to buy into my brand. In Norfolk, Virginia, he's represented the Vets Hall Junk brand in a really amazing way, and he's helped me, we've helped each other to become whole again. And then shortly after that, Chris Benson, an infantryman who was just transitioning out of the Army, had been to combat as well, and he was trying to find his place in society. Guys, what happens to a lot of us veterans is that, we're used to one way of living and being part of a well-oiled machine, proudly wearing the uniform, proudly wearing the U.S. flag on our sleeves, and eventually, either through a mishap, an accident, being hurt or wounded in combat, or just retiring after your time is over, all good things must come to an end, and you're forced to reckon with the question, what am I going to do with my life now? Some of us spent 20 years in the military. We grew up in the military. We entered the military as young men, and then we're forced to figure out, what in the hell do we do now? And many of us go through so much turbulence and trials trying to figure out what to do. Many of us don't find it. But Chris Benson was my second local owner in Lake Norman, North Carolina. And then Craig Brown reached out to me out of Indiana. He was in the U.S. Army and was a UH-60 Black Hawk crew chief. And he was dealing with PTSD as well. Guys, we all found ourselves. We all found a way to come together and heal ourselves. When the Army didn't need me anymore, and they transitioned me out of the military, I was not part of that team anymore, that camaraderie, that band of brothers. So after a couple of years of being in the funk, not finding that team mentality as a civilian, the only thing left for me to do was create my team. And though I didn't know what I was creating, I created exactly what I needed to help heal myself and become whole again. We're in the process of launching additional locations. Currently, Vets Hall Junk Removal, Raleigh, North Carolina, and I'm very proud about that, guys. So our mission as a community of veterans within the Vets Hall Junk Removal family is just to find as many veterans as we can and to allow them the opportunity to heal through junk removal therapy and be able to feel good about getting up every day. And slowly but surely, guys, allowing themselves to let go of that tight grip that PTSD has on them. You know, there's a stigma attached to soldiers with PTSD. It's not so bad now, but in the old days, you were considered weak if you complained about PTSD. Men didn't complain. Soldiers didn't complain. Marines didn't complain about PTSD. They kept it in. They held it in. They dealt with it in the shadows. But we have found a mechanism that allows us to let this air of PTSD just dissipate through junk removal and build something that can provide really great living for ourselves, create a legacy for our family, and just feel good about getting up every day, guys, and providing a much needed service for the community. I was encouraged by my mentor, Jeff Glass, except he doesn't know he's my mentor, to make a video, talk a little bit about your junk removal journey, to open ourselves up and let people know who we really are. So I just wanted to make this video to share with you my junk removal journey.
Rock, 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 steady. Rock, rock, rock.